Yo, hey, this shit easy, nigga. Hey, all I'm talking about, nigga, I'm still out here trying to get it.
Contender Regime Boxing, checking back in with y'all, man. What's going on? So I wanted to talk about, just kind of do a little recap, touch on Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter's fight last night. Saturday, November 20th, and talk about what the outcome of that fight means, what Terence Crawford's performance versus Shawn Porter, specifically what that means for him going forward, and in particular how he would fare versus Errol Spence Jr. First and foremost, I want to say congratulations to Terence Crawford. Man, I picked, as y'all seen on Merlot Fridays, I picked Terence Crawford to win by split decision. I thought it was going to come down to, I thought the fight was going to go to distance. I picked him to win by split decision or majority decision, and I said on live that a knockdown would be the difference. I had it looking very similar to Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence. And it's crazy because the way the fight was going up until the 10th round, up until the stoppage, the shit was looking just like that. I had Shawn Porter winning 6 rounds to 3. Now, I know a lot of people scored the fight differently, and I understand because this fight was extremely competitive and there were so many swing rounds. There were some rounds that I gave Porter that I'm like, damn, I think Bud could have possibly eked that out. Or then there was rounds that I gave Terence Crawford where I'm like, damn, Porter might have won that shit. You know what I'm saying? But I just judged it with my own eyes, looking at the work, the activity, and the effectiveness of the cleanliness of shots landing and who was controlling the fight. You know what I'm saying? I felt like Terence Crawford had a little trouble early on, which normally he starts slow. That's nothing new with Terence Crawford. We talked about that on Merlot Fridays. Terence Crawford typically starts out real slow, and he just kind of downloads information and just kind of, take a look at the landscape, see what he feel like is going to work for him, what's not going to work for him. And then once it clicks to him and he's like, okay, now I can go get him and do what I want to do, and I can just fight freely without thinking too much because I done already downloaded the information. So that wasn't a surprise to me that he started slow. And that was actually one of the reasons why I felt like Shawn Porter had a good chance to win, is because of that. Shawn Porter comes out there and he starts fast and he really starts to, he takes it to you early in the fight. So I had Shawn Porter up in a very, very close fight. Like I said, if you had Terence Crawford up in the fight, I can't even really argue with you on that because the rounds were so close. There was a lot of swing rounds. But I definitely had Shawn Porter winning up until the stoppage. So had the fight gone the distance, with that, let's say it was just one knockdown in the 10th round, that probably would have been the difference in the whole fight to give Terence Crawford the win. Outside of that, man, it was a great fight, a very tactical, technical brawl. It was like a chess match of a war. It was a very, very technical war, and those guys really put it all on the line. And I saw some impressive things from Shawn Porter, with things that he was doing with trying to keep Terence Crawford out balance, and I saw some very impressive things from Terence Crawford with using his timing and distance control to allow Shawn Porter to jump in, and he was taking steps back, lining up that left uppercut all night from the southpaw stance. I saw him timing that shit the whole night, and a lot of times it was landing in his chest and on Shawn Porter's like sternum and shit like that, but he was really timing that bitch to try to hit him in the head. But he finally got him in the 10th round, and Terence Crawford showed me again, man, he can turn it up when he need to turn it up. He can make an adjustment to the adjustment. You saw at one point, I think it was like was it the 6th round? I forget which round it was, but Shawn Porter had landed like 3 consecutive overhand rights. So what Terence Crawford did, he was like, all right, so now you're going to keep throwing that overhand right. Then you started seeing him as the rounds went on. You started seeing Terence Crawford take that step back, and then, he kept timing that left uppercut, and then he was throwing that right hook as well from the southpaw stance, man, and it finally got to Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter kept on trying to lean on that right hand, but once he figured out it wasn't, once Shawn Porter realized that he couldn't land that punch no more, you know, he started to get a little bit stagnant. That's why you seen him like just bouncing on his toes, trying to figure out, okay, how can I get in? How can I jump in? Where can I get in at? You know, because Terence Crawford started to figure him out and really, you know, put the beats on him. You dig what I'm saying? But like I said, man, it was a very close fight, very, very competitive fight. And I want to touch on, as far as the whole Errol Spence and Terence Crawford dynamic, man, everybody's getting on, everybody trying to like paint a picture about Errol Spence leaving out of the arena and shit like that. What I saw on Errol Spence's face was utter disgust. You know what I'm saying? He was disgusted at, because in my mind, I'm thinking Errol Spence saw the same shit I saw. He had, and if you listen to the interviews while he was like walking out of the arena and shit, they asked him, how did you see the fight going? And he had Shawn Porter up as well. I had Shawn Porter up. So in Errol Spence's mind, I'm thinking he like, damn, Kenny just gonna stop the fight like that? Like Shawn Porter could still keep going. He still had a chance to win. He still had a chance to continue and make something happen. And as a fight fan, I was disgusted at the stoppage when I first seen it. I'm like, damn, that's crazy. So I could only imagine how Errol Spence, he's there at the fight, into it. Like you can literally see he was looking up at the screen like he was into the shit. And when he seen the stoppage, he like, man, this some bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So fight over. I'm guessing Errol Spence, he want to dip out and, you know, get on up out of there real quick. That way you can beat the mob of fans and mob of people and all that shit, you know what I'm saying, and go about your business. So I would have loved for Errol Spence to at least try to get in the ring on some, I'm going to call out Terence Crawford type shit, or I'm here, I want you next. I would have loved for Terence Crawford to call Errol Spence up into the ring, you know what I'm saying, and try to make the shit happen. I felt like it could have been more effort on both sides in regard to calling each other out and trying to make the fight. You know, so that's my thoughts on that. But as far as the actual fight, when it does happen, because I truly believe that we gonna get this fight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this fight has to happen. This is the best, the biggest, the most demanded. This is the most anticipated fight in combat sports, in the sport of boxing. This is the fight that everybody want to see. It's too much money on the table for these guys, for this fight not to happen. And it's too much bragging rights. It's too much on the line. You know what I'm saying? Both of these dudes killers. Both of them got that dog and that heart in them. And I know that some way, somehow, they going to find a way to make this fight happen. And when it does, you see the title of this video. What does Terence Crawford's performance versus Shawn Porter mean in regard to Errol Spence? Let me tell you this. Again, very impressive. He made a statement by stopping Shawn Porter. Now, styles make fights. We all know that. You know what I'm saying? This does absolutely nothing to change the way I see Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford going. In fact, it makes me even more confident in my original prediction on how I think Errol Spence, or why I think Errol Spence will beat Terence Crawford. Him starting slow like that, I don't care how much information or data he's downloaded. That shit not gonna be good for him when he fight Errol Spence. And what I tell y'all every time, I've done two why I think Errol Spence beat Terence Crawford videos, and then I also done an extensive breakdown, like 20 minutes long. Go check that out. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people was fucking with that video where I really went into depth even more on the outcome of that fight when it does happen. I told y'all every time that the only way Terence Crawford gonna beat Errol Spence, he gonna have to hurt him. That goes for anybody. You're not winning on the cards versus Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford by stoppage, and I think he can beat him on the cards. Terence Crawford is not gonna beat Errol Spence on the cards. He gonna have to hurt him. He gonna have to hit him with something significant, and it's possible. You see, Terence Crawford got real power. We know Errol Spence got real power. You know what I'm saying? So I think either guy's at risk of being hurt in this fight. However, it's just more ways for Errol Spence to win, in my opinion. his work rate is going to be too crazy for Terence Crawford in that fight. Another thing, Terence Crawford, I think Terence Crawford is most effective fighting out of the southpaw stance. In my opinion, that's when Terence Crawford is at his best. I think Terence, even though he's an incredible switch hitter and he has power in both hands, I think Terence Crawford is most comfortable fighting out of southpaw. I think that's where he does the most damage. He's not going to fight Errol Spence from the southpaw position. Number one, Errol Spence is a southpaw. He's not going to have the same advantage that he will have over an orthodox fighter. And then also, Errol Spence is longer than a Shawn Porter, who, of course, Errol Spence is going to be coming forward in that fight. He ain't going to have to do all that lunging in, you know what I'm saying, getting hit with reckless shit, lunging in, leaving himself overly exposed just to get on the inside. Terence Crawford is going to be fighting orthodox. If he tries to fight southpaw, he really going to get his ass whooped because that jab going to be closer to his face and it's going to be easier for Errol Spence to get that jab in his face all damn night. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be easier for Errol Spence to line that jab up and continue to go forward and throw Terence Crawford's rhythm and timing off with the jab, going to the head and to the body. And again, the work rate is going to be crazy. It's going to be round 4, round 5. Terence Crawford is down significantly on the cards. His only chance to turn the tide of that fight is going to be to hurt Errol Spence. Terence Crawford's only chance to beat Errol Spence is by knockout. That's it. And I think Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford by KO or on the cards. Trust and believe when I tell you this, man. Look, styles make fights. Everything that I seen in that Shawn Porter fight, it give me even more confidence that Errol Spence is going to do everything that I said he going to do. You know what I'm saying? I saw some good things that Shawn Porter was able to do versus Terence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? You know, Errol Spence got a nice right hook. You know, the jab, I think Errol Spence got one of the best jabs in boxing. One of the most active jabs. Constant, effective, sharp, accurate. You know what I'm saying? And I love the straight left hook that Errol Spence going to throw behind that jab and the overhand left. And again, Terence Crawford will have to fight Errol Spence to give himself the best chance to win. He going to have to fight him from the orthodox position, which I think he's comfortable doing that, but he's way more comfortable fighting from southpaw. So I think he'll be a little bit out of his element. You know what I'm saying? He'll be forced to do some things that he probably don't want to do. I think it's going to be a great fight. Just like I said before, half chess match, half dog fight. But to answer the question in the title, or to address what the title says, Terence Crawford's performance versus Shawn Porter was phenomenal. He done what he was supposed to do. I thought the stoppage was premature, but Terence Crawford, in my opinion, is the best offensive fighter in the sport of boxing, and he's the best finisher in the sport of boxing. So I expected him to finish Shawn Porter, whether Kenny Porter threw the towel in or not. When Terence Crawford gets you hurt, he finish your ass. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not really tripping on the stoppage like that. I was tripping on the fact of like how the shit went down. I'm like, Shawn Porter, he beating his hand on the ground and shit out of frustration. He not like really just out of it or hurt like that. And it's the 10th round. He can possibly survive the next few rounds. But logically thinking, Terence Crawford is the best finisher in boxing, so you can only expect for him to go in there and finish Shawn Porter after he get him hurt. You dig what I'm saying? But great performance by Terence Crawford, but this changes nothing when it comes to Errol the Truth Spence Jr. So, man, they got to make that fight happen. I don't know if they got to get on the phone behind closed doors. I don't know what it's going to take for them to, you know, to iron this shit out. Terence Crawford is now a free agent. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it's promising. I think we're going to get this fight, man. And again, you know, I love both fighters. I'm a huge fan of both guys. But y'all already know how I'm rocking, man. I got Errol the Truth Spence Jr. beating Terence Crawford. And that shit, ain't shit gonna change that unless Errol Spence just physically can't perform. You know what I'm saying? Unless he can't show up that night. You feel me? Unless Errol Spence physically cannot go into the ring and fight, I got Errol Spence beating Terence Crawford, period. You know what I'm saying? And y'all seen Errol Spence at the fight. You know, that brother look good. He in shape. He told you the eyes ready. You know what I mean? He can spar. He's cleared to do all activities. And he, like I said, he in phenomenal shape. So I think he hungry right now. And he ready to prove a point. He been keeping tabs on all the doubters and all the naysayers. You dig what I'm saying? So y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. How did y'all feel about Terence Crawford's performance versus Shawn Porter? And in your mind, what does this mean for how he'll match up versus Errol Spence? Does this change your previous predictions on that fight? Your previous assessment or evaluation on that fight? What do you think that fight will look like once it actually does get made? Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments, man. Contender regime boxing. I'll holler at y'all boys, man.